Welcome to Issues Uncovered. There's a strange and frustrating pattern we've all witnessed. Someone with very little knowledge on a topic speaks with absolute confidence. Meanwhile, the people who actually know what they're talking about second-guess themselves. It happens in meetings, on social media, in politics, and across every industry. You've probably noticed it in a friend, a co-worker, or even in yourself. This pattern isn't just annoying. It's a scientifically studied phenomenon. It has a name, the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It explains why the people who know the least often think they know the most, while the most competent individuals tend to underestimate their own ability. But this isn't just about intelligence. It's about how we perceive knowledge, how we measure our own competence, and how our brains can fool us without us even realizing it. Understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect is crucial, not just for identifying it in others, but for recognizing how it shows up in ourselves. Because the truth is, no one is immune. Let's dive deep into the psychology behind this mind-bending illusion of confidence. The story begins in 1999, when two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, conducted a series of experiments at Cornell University. They were intrigued by a bizarre news story. A man had robbed two banks in broad daylight, completely unmasked. When he was arrested, he seemed genuinely shocked. Why? Because he had rubbed lemon juice on his face, believing it would make him invisible to security cameras. He thought incorrectly that lemon juice could work like invisible ink. His logic was flawed, but he was completely confident in it. Dunning and Kruger wondered, how could someone be so wrong and yet so sure of themselves? So they tested hundreds of participants on grammar, logic, and humor. Then they asked each person to estimate how well they thought they had done. The results were astonishing. The people who scored the lowest consistently overestimated their performance. They believed they were above average, even when their actual results were in the bottom quartile. In contrast, the people who performed the best tended to underestimate themselves. They assumed that if a task was easy for them, it must be easy for everyone. This cognitive bias, the gap between perceived and actual ability, is what we now call the Dunning-Kruger effect. At its core, the Dunning-Kruger effect reveals a paradox. To evaluate your competence in a skill, you need a minimum level of that same skill. In other words, the knowledge required to perform well is often the same knowledge required to recognize what doing well actually looks like. Without it, people not only perform poorly, they also lack the insight to recognize their own mistakes. It's not just that they're wrong. It's that they're wrong and unaware that they're wrong. This double blind of incompetence creates a dangerous illusion of superiority. And the implications stretch far beyond academic tests. You see this effect everywhere. In the workplace, the least skilled employees often rate their performance the highest. In politics, candidates with the least experience may speak with the most confidence. On social media, people who've read a single article on a complex topic might argue with experts who've spent decades in the field. The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't discriminate by intelligence, age, or background. It affects all of us because it's not about how smart you are. It's about how accurately you can judge your own knowledge. Let's look at how the Dunning-Kruger effect plays out in real life. Imagine someone who's just started learning about nutrition. After watching a few YouTube videos and reading a couple of blog posts, they suddenly feel like an expert. They begin giving unsolicited advice to friends, criticizing other diets, and dismissing professional nutritionists. In their mind, they're confident. But in reality, their understanding is shallow and full of holes. Contrast that with a professional dietitian who's studied the topic for years. That person knows how complex the science is, how many factors influence health, how much nuance is involved. Because of that awareness, they're more cautious in making bold claims. Their competence breeds humility. This pattern is so consistent, psychologists often illustrate it with what's become known as the Dunning-Kruger curve. When people first learn a new topic, their confidence shoots up quickly. This is the Mount Stupid phase, where people know just enough to feel confident, but not enough to realize how little they truly know. Then as they learn more, their confidence drops into the valley of despair. This is when people become aware of the complexity and realize they're not experts. With continued learning and practice, their confidence slowly climbs again, this time grounded in real understanding. This curve shows that confidence and knowledge don't always grow together. In fact, they often grow inversely, at least in the beginning. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't just apply to intellectual knowledge. It applies to social skills, emotional intelligence, leadership, artistic ability, even self-awareness itself. Think of someone who believes they're an amazing communicator, but consistently talks over people, misses social cues, and fails to listen. Or the aspiring singer who auditions for a competition completely off-key and is genuinely shocked when the judges don't see their talent. We laugh at these moments on TV shows like American Idol, but they're real psychological phenomena. The people involved aren't pretending. They truly believe they're skilled because they lack the perceptual tools to recognize their deficits. This brings us to a crucial point. Incompetence isn't just a lack of skill, it's a lack of the self-awareness needed to recognize that lack of skill. And that makes it incredibly hard to correct. If you're not aware of what you don't know, how can you improve? How can you seek help or grow if you think there's no problem to begin with? The Dunning-Kruger effect creates a psychological blind spot. It's like trying to read a label from inside the bottle. You need external feedback, teachers, mentors, peers, even failure itself to hold up a mirror. But that's not always easy, because the same overconfidence that creates the problem also makes people resistant to feedback. If you think you're right, why would you listen to criticism? This is why overconfident individuals often double down when challenged. They interpret disagreement as ignorance in others, not a flaw in themselves. They protect their self-image instead of questioning it. And yet, ironically, the Dunning-Kruger effect can also be found in the reverse, what psychologists call the imposter phenomenon. That's when highly competent people underestimate their abilities. They assume that if something comes easily to them, it must be easy for everyone. They dismiss their strengths, feel like frauds, and worry about being found out. This form of self-doubt is especially common among high achievers and women in male-dominated fields. It's the other side of the same coin, misjudging your abilities, but in the direction of underconfidence. Both the Dunning-Kruger effect and imposter syndrome reveal a central truth. We are not very good at evaluating ourselves. Our self-perceptions are often distorted by emotion, ego, and limited perspective. So what can we do about it? How do we overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect in ourselves and in others? The first step is simple but powerful: awareness. Just knowing that this bias exists helps us become more cautious about our own confidence. If you feel extremely sure of something, especially early in learning it, pause and ask, could I be missing something? Am I overestimating my understanding? Remind yourself that confidence does not equal competence, and that real expertise often includes doubt. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. The second step is seeking feedback. Get outside your own head. Ask others, teachers, peers, colleagues, for honest input. Don't just look for praise. Look for constructive criticism. Be curious, not defensive. Learn to separate your ego from your learning. Feedback can be uncomfortable, but it's essential for growth. The people who grow the fastest are often the ones most open to being wrong. Next, embrace intellectual humility. This doesn't mean lacking confidence. It means recognizing the limits of your knowledge and being willing to revise your views when new information arises. It means saying, I don't know, or I could be wrong, not as a sign of weakness, but as a strength. Humility invites learning. Arrogance shuts it down. In a world filled with noise and misinformation, humility is one of the most powerful traits you can develop. Another important practice is continuous learning. Avoid the trap of Mount Stupid by keeping your curiosity alive. Read widely, ask questions. Explore opposing viewpoints. Don't stop at surface knowledge, dig deeper. The more layers you uncover, the more nuanced your understanding becomes. And with that nuance comes grounded confidence, the kind that's informed, not inflated. Also, be mindful of how the Dunning-Kruger effect shows up in conversations and debates. When someone speaks with absolute certainty, especially on a complex issue, ask yourself, do they really know what they're talking about? Or are they mistaking confidence for knowledge? Likewise, don't dismiss someone just because they express uncertainty. They might actually know more than they're letting on. In a world that often rewards loud opinions, be the person who values depth over volume. In leadership, education, and public discourse, the Dunning-Kruger effect has serious consequences. Overconfident but underqualified individuals can rise to power, make decisions, and shape policy. Meanwhile, truly competent people may stay silent, doubting their right to speak up. This imbalance skews progress. It misleads the public. It can even be dangerous. From health misinformation to conspiracy theories to financial scams, the illusion of knowledge can do real harm. That's why understanding this psychological trap isn't just interesting, it's necessary. So where does that leave us? The Dunning-Kruger effect is a reminder of our mental blind spots. It humbles us. It forces us to question our own certainty and to approach learning with curiosity rather than ego. It teaches us that self-awareness is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. No one is completely free of bias, but we can get better at catching ourselves, questioning our assumptions, and choosing growth over defensiveness. Next time you feel tempted to speak like an expert on a topic you've just discovered, pause. Ask yourself, have I really earned this confidence? Or am I still on Mount Stupid? And if you're someone who constantly doubts yourself, despite having real knowledge and experience, remember, you might know more than you think. The world needs your voice. Speak with humility, but don't stay silent. Thank you for watching Issues Uncovered. If this video challenged your thinking or helped you see yourself or others in a new light, let us know in the comments. Have you ever experienced the Dunning-Kruger effect or seen it in action? We'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more psychology-driven explorations into the way our minds shape the world. And as always, stay curious, stay humble, and keep uncovering.